Welcome back to Value Stack. Today, I'm joined by my buddy Colin Crossman, founder, I guess is the CEO, co-CEO of Distributed Hash.
General partner. Yeah.
General partner. Neither one of them.
We're kind of a triumvirate.
Yeah, no superiority claiming one or the other. And you started Distributed Hash with Rob, who was a guest.
Yep.
A couple episodes ago.
Yeah, Rob, Bikes and Bitcoin, and my wife, and we'll be bringing on a fourth partner later this year, who's actually moved to Gillette and is going to be the on-site, boots on the ground guy.
Gillette would you mean like is that
Gillette, Wyoming? Yeah,
that's where the facility is.
Yeah.
Dude, you're already starting off bad with this OPSEC. I thought you guys were a privacy miner.
We're privacy minded. I'm not going to tell you who's in the facility.
Well, there's like one facility in Gillette, Wyoming, I bet.
Maybe.
Which we'll talk about as I have some questions on like why no one lives in Wyoming, considering that, you know, they have such good laws and favorable tax structure, regulation, and stuff like that. But before we get into that, I would love to hear how you got into Bitcoin. I think you had said you told your story a few times, so maybe we'll keep it like pretty concise. We don't have to go too deep into it. But
well, actually, never been recorded on it. I've talked about it on Clubhouse and stuff. But you're the first guy.
Let's go, man.
Yeah, there you go. So I got into Bitcoin in 2011, and like anybody who says that, yeah, I actually have the receipts and the proof. But I was working night shift at the hotel, and my wife and I had a boutique bed and breakfast, and I was working night shift, and I was reading in between playing EVE Online. I decided to set up a Bitcoin node, which back then was a whole, installing core and everything. And of course, this is before GPU, or right around the time GPU mining, way before ASICs. I think Butterfly Labs was a thing back then, but I was CPU mining.
Wow.
Yeah.
That long ago.
CPU mining. And I was, I think the only pool was Slush Pool. I don't even know if it was.
Was it F2 pool at that?
No. It was Slush Pool, but it was called something else. But it wasn't F2 because F2 is still around.
Oh, F2 is a different.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Slush Pool that renamed itself to Brains Pool.
Yeah, well,
that's what I was thinking of.
It was I think it was before it was called even Slush Pool. I think it was called something else. But it was the sสame pool as now Brains Pool, formerly Slush Pool. And I'm thinking it was formerly something else. But yeah, I mean, I'll put it out there. I mined 18 plus Bitcoin off of Apple Mac Mini CPUs.
You hear that, IRS?
Of course, it was only worth a couple of grand, and I sold it all.
And this was back in 2011?
2012.
So you could.
I was getting.
What was the block reward back? Was that
50?
50? Oh, it was still the first epoch.
The first epoch, it was 50, and I was getting on I think it was like, call it 17 or 18 Apple Minis. One whole coin every 5 days on CPU.
Whoa.
And I didn't know what I had, and I mined it, and then
most people still don't.
Well, yeah,
by the way,
that's true.
Right?
Very true. Very true. And sometime in 2012, I wanted a motorcycle. I pushed it all to Mt. Gox, sold it, and
got your cash out at least.
Got it. Oh, I got it. I got it all out. I got the motorcycle.
At least you got the motor. I mean, I was going to say it's an expensive motorcycle, but not as expensive as it would have been had you got goxed.
Yeah, well, that's true. I got my money out, got the motorcycle. Motorcycle got stolen a couple years later, so I
you did get
stupid motorcycle. But
you did get goxed just in another way.
But then I didn't look. I kept my eye on Bitcoin from 2012 on, but I didn't own any, and I didn't get back into it until, call it 19.
Oh wow, that's a big.
Yeah.
Usually it's like a couple years, right? That's like 7 years.
Yeah, it's like 7 years, and I kept my eye on it. Watch it. I saw the run up in 17, 18. But I wasn't in. Everything crashed, and I was doing my own thing, running the hotels, and then I saw in 19 some things in my life changed, and I'm like, I should get back into this. I started teaching myself, and I will admit I got back in through shitcoins.
Yeah, that's most people.
I know. I mean, I got attracted. I looked at Ethereum. I'm like, this is interesting. but it's kind of lame. So yes, I got back in through Cardano. I roll my eyes.
You didn't have to say that.
I did. I'm up front and open about it. I got in through our Cardano, and then I went and my journey from shitcoin to Bitcoin maximalist was done as not part of the community. I maxied myself. Like I got into Cardano. I had all the Namecoin. So back in 2011, 2012, CPU mining, you merge mined Namecoin. Well, I sold all my Bitcoin, but I didn't sell the Namecoin. I still had the wallet. So I had all the Namecoin.
What is Namecoin?
So Namecoin is the only shitcoin that Satoshi himself had mentioned. I think that's the story. He actually talked about Namecoin was this project where it was supposed to be DNS on the blockchain. It was also bullshit, just like everything else. But it's one of the earliest altcoins, shitcoins. But because it also used SHA-256, when you mined it,
you could merge mine at the same time.
So when I restarted my Bitcoin journey, I had all this Namecoin that I sold and turned into Bitcoin. And so that's kind of what I used to regenerate and build back up. Then I also got into Cardano right about the same time and bought some of that, realized, wait, this is crap, sold it all, turned it all into Bitcoin. And that's when late 19, early 20, right as COVID was hitting everything. That's when I sort of entered the community right after I had maxed myself. So
it's about the same time frame. I mean, I think I first started learning about it in 17, like summer 17 or so. And then started taking it more seriously in like mid 19. It was like right when all the tech stocks started just going crazy because I worked in the financial industry and was like, the valuations, like the price to earnings of these like tech stocks,
they just went crazy.
Yeah, I was a kind of a gold bug. Like I had my portfolio was like more positioned to commodities for like the better part of the 2010s, and I just got smoked. And like tech stocks, did amazing. So I just like after a while, I was like, Bitcoin seems like a real good commodity because they can't print more of it. I forget what I've read. There's a handful of pieces that I read over time, but eventually just got to the point where I was like, I think it was like I was started to DCA in like 19, and then by 20 I was like, no more DCA.
Just go all in.
Like I was just like, we don't have time.
Yeah.
Like this shit, I mean, dude, even like I can't believe 2020 was a thing.
Yeah.
Like it's still like I was walking around the grocery store today and tons of people still wearing masks. And then I actually had that thought. I was like, holy crap. I remember when this was like a real, like everyone, it was a mandate. And like, they're like, the police are like, put your mask on. And then the grocers like handling my green onions and all with their bare hands. And I'm like, wait, why are we doing this?
Oh God.
But yeah, dude, crazy time. So, I think a lot of people that was like kind of what the bull market happened in like early Q1, Q2, 2020. So
yeah.
Kind of coincided with a lot of people's realization of.
Well, we had that huge crash in March of 20, right after like it wasn't Bitcoin, it was everything.
50% in a day,
and it went down to what, like 8,000, 9,000, something like that.
No, it went down to like 3,000.
Oh, right, you're right.
It went from like 6 to 3,
and that's
in a day.
When that happened, that was a big purchase for me. Like I saw that and I'm like, I'm seeing so I was in the hotel industry at the time, and I saw the supply chains just collapsing.
Right.
And I'm like, well, at least I want something. And so
why do you think it is that when things go on sale, like Bitcoin, people just don't want anything to do with it. But when it goes way up, they do. I know it happens with stocks, but it's something that like when you're talking about something that people consume, when it goes up in price, they don't want to buy it. When you're talking about an investment and it goes up in price, they do want to buy it. Like, but the best time to buy something is when the price goes down. In both cases, right? Like when I go to the grocery and I see like pork shoulders, like buy one get one free.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if I need pork or not, dude. Your boy's getting some, put in the deep freezer. Right. So like, why do you think it is that people have this like cognitive dissonance when it comes to crashes in Bitcoin and investments where it doesn't really happen in anything else.
I think it's a herd mentality where people see, they see something crashing and they think, oh, that's a loser, I want out. And everybody runs for the exits. And you get a overreaction. And like, think about it like when you go over a bump and your shocks are bad in your car and it's just like boom, 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 boom. And that's a like a ringing or something where it just goes way too far and everybody dumps it thinking I'm going to be out of the door, and then it comes back up and people start to realize it goes far enough down and they're like, okay, now it's time to buy, and then it just shoots back up, and so you get basically like a ringing or a spring effect. Yeah.
So it's like rubber band. Like the further you stretch it, the harder it snaps back.
Mm-hmm. And then but on the way down, it's like a momentum. So they like everything's just going down, and everybody's like, I want out.
But like herd mentality exists in all things. Like, why is it so different with investments, you think?
I think it's just, the fear. Most people, first of all, aren't professionals in it, right? Most people are only professionals in their little area, but everybody, just like the fiat world pushes everybody to have to deal with investments, which we know is like the financialization of everything.
Right.
Well, but most people aren't professionals, so they're not thinking.
Well, I guess like I'm trying to think through this. So in like a consumption aspect, so okay, like eggs, for example, in Colorado, right? Like 3 weeks ago, there were no eggs. Then they jacked the price up to like $10 a dozen. Now I went there, no more limit on how many eggs you can buy. Nothing. The whole freaking shelf was stocked full of eggs. And I stood there looking in the eggs and I was like, do I really want to pay $10 for $8-9 for a dozen of eggs? No, I don't.
Yeah, buck an egg, geez.
Yeah, and I know it was cheaper to buy a pack of bacon, which is like crazy. I was like, I'm going to have bacon and bacon instead of bacon and eggs. But it's like, so for this example, like the price goes up and like people stop buying it, right? Mm-hmm. Why? Like if people would just do that with their investments, they'd be far more successful, Well, like right now is a great time to accumulate, I think.
Well, I think I think it's one of those things where when the price is going up, people think it's going to keep going up. When it's going down, they think it's going to keep going down. But like you said, with the eggs, it's the other way around, where it's a consumption good, so it's getting more expensive, and they just limit it. And
is the difference that with an investment, like you're planning to sell it later?
I think
whereas with the consumption, you're locking it in and you're consuming it, so it doesn't matter what the value is later.
Yeah, like you can't resell an egg. I mean, you probably couldn't. Like I'm not going to buy an egg from you unless you have chickens, and I know this is the chicken that made the egg, not that you didn't get it at Costco.
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
But like, because I didn't know, like, if I don't know what you got, like how it was stored and everything. But with an investment, like a share of stock or a Bitcoin is the same as any other.
Right.
So I mean, it's not like this one is somehow bad compared to that one. Whereas, at least in the supermarket or a farm stand or something, I know those eggs, they weren't like handled by 50 other people.
Right.
But I mean, but you also see the same thing right now with cars. Like the used car market's crazy. But unlike with eggs, like with something with a food stuff or something, you can at least exchange eggs for bacon or eggs for bread or whatever. I mean, if you need transportation, you need transportation. So I mean, it's a crazy world right now, and I think that we're living through a dislocation in fiat that's driving everybody insane.
Well, I mean, this is exactly why I've started like buying like meat locally from like ranchers and all, because I'm starting to be like skeptical because I see the government and regulatory environment interfering with the supply chains, with our food supply, and demonizing meat. Yep. And I texted someone yesterday a screenshot. I was like, it was an ad for like deforestation, and it was like, save our planet by killing these carbon storing wood forests, or like they were basically like demonizing trees for storing carbon. And I was like, okay, this is stranger than reality, because they literally consume carbon to give us oxygen, so that we can breathe.
Well, that and storing carbon means it's not in the atmosphere.
Not in the atmosphere, right?
But of course, that the Europeans, in order to be greener, they're cutting down North American forests, turning them into wood pulp, and shipping it over there for them to burn. You didn't hear about that? Oh
No.
yeah, they're like all these pellet stoves in Germany and other areas. They can't make them in Europe because they either the forests are protected or they just don't have enough. So they're chopping down North American, American and Canadian forests, turning them into wood pellets, shipping them to Europe so that they can be greener. Because chopping down forests, putting them on a diesel-powered barge or diesel-powered shipping boat and pushing them over the Atlantic and burning them in Europe is somehow greener than...
Well, it's like when you break them, like when the money's broken, it completely like messes up all of the economic incentives all the way through the supply chain from the very beginning. I mean, that's why like a lot of times buying beef like locally from your rancher is more expensive because it's not like all these shortcuts that they take in the mass production. Could you speak maybe to like a little bit about how you justify like, the like buying from your rancher, given that we are in a tough economy, prices are going up, but yet it's still worth it, right?
Yeah. I work with a couple of a group of local guys, and we all get together and buy animals from. We've had a couple from Jason Rick, Beef Bees Bitcoin on Twitter, and he's over in Montrose, I think it is, or Crawford.
Crawford, they're right next to each other. Yeah.
And so we buy animals from him, and I think it works out to like $8 a pound, which is for on the ground beef side. That sounds horrible if you look at the grocery store,
right? But for the New York strip,
but it's average, of course. So like you're getting ribeye in New York strip and fillet for $9 a pound or $8 a pound. And you're getting ground beef for $8 a pound. But and it's
which you can taste the difference. We were talking about that before we started recording. I can taste the difference.
Oh, you can totally taste.
Some
the
people
difference.
don't like it, prefer it. Like
his is grass fed, grass finished, and so it's a bit of a different flavor profile, and it's a bit leaner. So if you like the really thick, heavily marbled corn finished steak, it may not be for you. Although you should give it a try because it's really awesome. But the flavor profile is a bit. I don't know what I could say. Not gamey. It's not like actual.
Yeah,
elk.
I would say it's kind of it tastes more wild.
Yeah, I guess for me, so
the stuff I get at the grocery store tastes very processed. Like I think it's the corn. It makes it taste very bland.
So I'm gonna go. People may call me absolutely crazy for this, but what I find in gamey meat is it tastes fishy, and here's why I think that is. Because they're higher in omega-3s. And I think that my palate picks up.
It reminds you of it.
Yeah. And so it's got it's not like fishy in the sense of like, you're eating actual fish, but it's got a hint of fishiness to it. And I think that's because it's the higher omega-3s, which means it's healthier for you. And so for some people that translates to gaminess. For me, it's this is grass-fed, this is high quality beef. Right. It's really good. And you're spending a little bit more money than the, grain-fed, grain-finished Australian beef that's shipped over to Costco or or Sam's Club or Walmart or whatever, or your local grocery store even. But at the end of the day, the nutrient density is higher. It's a tastier cut of meat, and you're getting the whole animal. So like when you buy a whole animal, you're not just getting the ground. You're not just getting, the cuts, but you're getting the tallow. That's
my favorite part. I started rubbing tallow on my face in the morning.
Oh God, I haven't done that, but
you better start.
I'll look into that.
You better start, dude. I'm telling you, man. I read some reviews and I was like, this shit's magical. Well, I gotta get it.
Well, I know that Clara and Fitz are making tallow face balm and stuff. I know some other people who are going to get started.
Are they the ones doing the bars too?
I think so. Yeah. But now I'm looking into getting some local pork, which is hard.
I need a pork guy.
Well, I found one. I'll get you the deets after this. But
sounds like a drug deal.
Yeah, no, really.
Give it. Got the money. I got the pork.
Yeah.
Maybe in the alley at 4 p.m.
Yeah, good bacon.
Yeah, we can still do it daytime because it is bacon.
Yeah, but admittedly, it's harder to get out here in Colorado, Wyoming.
Why is that?
It's just not the best. What do you call it? Climate
to raise pigs.
Yeah, because even so, because I grew up on the East Coast, and you can get. I think the numbers are in the range of like one cow per couple of acres, 2 to 3, 4 acres. And in North Carolina, hog farms are just everywhere. So
I've noticed like pork is pretty cheap here. Like maybe I'm just getting some real
well, I don't
bottom
know.
of the barrel.
You're getting, I don't know what you're getting in pork.
I go to the Asian supermarket. They have crazy good prices on meat.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. The Asian supermarkets have really good prices on meat.
Like it's a secret that it's not really like a well-kept secret, but just go to the Asian grocery in whatever town you live in.
Yeah.
The chicken prices there, I want to say at King Soopers, the grocery store was like $3.50 a pound for chicken breasts, for $3.99 maybe. Asian grocery $1.49 a pound. I felt like I was going back to 2017, dude.
Wow.
It was like last week.
Their spices are good too.
Oh yeah, it's a half Asian, half Mexican grocery store, or maybe it's like, I don't know.
That was the secret in North Carolina too. Is go to the ours was H Mart, which is Korean.
Yep, this is like H Mart, basically the same thing, but just not that one. But I'm not going to say it because can't get my secrets out, boys. There's never a line there, and I would like to keep it that way.
Right, there you go. There you go.
I'll tell you off camera. But yeah, man, I got the beef from Jason twice now, and I'm looking for a pork guy. I'm looking for an egg guy too. Could be an egg lady also. It doesn't have to be a guy, but
I haven't got an egg source yet. I got to get an egg source and I got a milk source. Both of those are.
I don't like milk, but I would use like a cream or butter. Like I would still go for that. But I just don't drink. I don't know. I just don't like the taste of milk.
Oh,
it's weird to me.
Well, I want to get into making my own cheese.
Yeah,
that's like
that sounds good.
A thing because like
ice cream.
Oh yeah. Or even cream. Or even heavy cream in my coffee.
Yeah, heavy cream. Yeah, I drink my coffee black.
I learned that I really like heavy cream in my coffee or butter in my coffee. I don't do sugar or anything, but just a little bit of heavy cream. It's like takes the edge off.
I watched, it was a podcast or read something on the internet. I don't know, but read somewhere that combining fat with caffeine like increases the what do you want to call it? Like uptake, or let's say it's like a 50% efficiency of like how good it spreads through your body.
That makes sense.
When you add fat, it's like 80%. Basically, your body absorbs the caffeine better, and the fat like sends like fireworks in your brain. It's like caffeine, fat. Fuck, today's gonna be a good day, my boys.
Well, that makes sense because caffeine is not very water soluble. It's actually a fat soluble thing. So you add the fat to it.
That must be exactly why it is. Yeah,
so you're like coating it. Just like how you have to, like if you're taking certain vitamins, you have to take them with a meal or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Have you taken a vitamin like on a dry empty stomach before?
B vitamins, they'll wreck you. Yeah.
Dude, just everywhere, yak every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I forget sometimes, and I've even tried like with just like a protein shake.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. You better have some solid food in your stomach, man, or it's
gonna be a bad time.
And I'm kind of sus on vitamins anyway. Like I feel like it need to be like most of my vitamins need to be coming from food and like natural sources, but I just don't need enough variation in my diet. Probably like it might help.
Well, that's why the getting the locally raised beef is so good because those things are gonna have much higher nutrient density than something that's been shipped and who knows how long it's been sitting, frozen, whatever. Things do go bad. I mean, not necessarily bad enough to hurt you, but you'll lose some quality. And if it's like chickens that have been, or even you can taste it in strawberries, right? You ever had a rapidly grown strawberry? It tastes like cardboard with a hint of strawberry scent.
No, I don't eat strawberries.
Okay. Well, if
I saw that TikTok video where they like put it in salt and bugs came out, and dude, I never ever ate a strawberry ever again.
I didn't see that, so I'm not going to look at that.
Well, it's already destroyed your theory of strawberries now.
But
but it's real.
Yeah,
like,
even apples. If you have
if you just soak, I'm gonna keep going. If you soak strawberries in salt water, tiny little bugs will start crawling out of there, dude. I swear to you, I saw it on TikTok. And I was like, come on. Like, yeah, BS. Did it. Freaked the heck out. Threw the whole thing away. Never ate it again. Because I will not eat bugs.
Oh, yeah. Don't eat the bugs. And
I'm like, this is how they're trying to get me comfortable with it without me even knowing. Then I went and did some internet research. And it's like apparently pretty normal with like more than just strawberries. Like tons of food have these like, we're talking like you can barely see them. Like it's like look like a little crawling dot. It's extra protein, some people would say, but I don't
want to do that.
That's not where I'll be getting my protein source as long as I can help it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so don't eat strawberries, kids. Sorry, strawberry farmers.
Well, okay.
Louisiana, where I'm from, is like number one crop is like strawberries and like
Really?
Abita Springs. Yeah, it's like they have Louisiana Strawberry Festival every year. Grew up like strawberries were everywhere. And I saw that video. My entire life changed from that moment forward. Fun fact.
Well, okay. I will not look up that video because I like my strawberries.
Oh, there's many, many of them.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, ignorance is bliss sometimes, Well, I get it though, about going back to your farmer. And I mean, like actually in the same line, like sometimes when I'll get like organic crops and stuff, like organic produce, they'll be like a little funky with the bugs and stuff because they don't
spray them.
Yeah. So it's like there's a fine balance between like, okay, this is super clean and like I'm not touching that, dude. I don't care how fertilizer free it is.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is you get these modern super fast grown things, you like they kind of taste, and it's the same with beef. Like you can taste it when it's been jacked with hormones and grown really fast, and it'll cost more because there's more that goes into it, and it just tastes different. In my mind, it tastes better, and you get more nutrients of it. There's lots of things that the modern society, the people in modern society are deficient on, like selenium and zinc and all these things that you need, and they're going to be in beef, they're going to be in the liver, they're going to be in the muscle.
Right. Dude, liver's like packed with nutrients.
So
I can't do it.
in the animal that I just got recently, I had the processor grind up heart and liver with the ground. So it's like,
did he like note those specially that these are like the butcher blend?
Yeah, it specifically says ground beef with heart and liver, and it should be like 80% muscle, just like normal ground beef, and then 10% heart and 10% liver. And that was the animal that I just got. Yeah.
So I think you had told me about that at first, and then I did it with the like 2 pounds of liver that I had, but I think my ratio was like 66 ground beef, 33. Dude, it tasted. My roommate liked it, but I did not at all, dude. It was like it smelled like iron. Like, it smelled like metal.
Yeah, because the liver's got so much iron in it, and same with the heart.
Yeah. I just couldn't. But
that's why
I could barely get it down, dude. I put garlic and ginger and like all kinds of aromatics in there, just trying to get that smell out.
So I tried to do it. I tried to do it myself with a grinder. And
I chopped it with my like knife.
Yeah, it didn't work out for me when I did it myself. But so when I had the butcher do it, I haven't had I literally got this cow yesterday. Haven't had a chance to thaw one out and try it. But from what my friends have told me who've done this, they said, first of all, it's 80% 10-10 or less.
Right. Which I did.
But also if you had the butcher do it, because everything is fresh when they're doing it, it combines better. The flavor is a lot more. I mean, you almost don't know,
and you kind of learn these like little tricks and stuff too when you buy from your local ranchers too.
Yeah,
like I was texting Jason and I was like, I didn't understand like the hanging weight versus like finished weight, and I didn't understand like the dry age. I mean, it all makes a lot of sense that like dry aging would make the weight like go down some, but I was just didn't know.
Water.
And I asked him and he explained it to me, and it's like, cool. Now I learned a little bit more about, the process of, I mean, I got a lot more to learn, but, you don't get that sort of education or connection with your food when you're just buying it on the supermarket shelves.
Well, and of course, that's the other thing you can do is if you're buying it from the rancher and you're picking the process, which means you can select the cuts you like. Like, let's say, I don't like T-bone. I like that particular cut split up.
It's a fillet in New York?
Yeah, it's a fillet in New York. I like my fillets in New York separate.
I prefer it that way too.
So I just tell the butcher no T-bones. And there's no T-bones. It's all fillets in New York.
And what's the porterhouse?
Porterhouse.
It's a ribeye and a fillet.
Yeah, it's a ribeye and fillet. Or is that and there's a Chateaubriand, which is like a...
that sounds fancy.
It's fancy, but it's basically just a really long fillet. I think. That one, I didn't get any Chateaubriand this time. I just had it because I split that cow with a bunch of people, so I had them. Chateaubriands are big. They're also hard to cook.
Oh, porterhouse has more tenderloin.
Yeah, they're but when you're doing that, you're picking your cuts. You can select what you like, but also the aging thing. So,
and you notice a difference.
Oh, I think the standard is you have to age it for 14 days.
Right, and then they can do it.
They can do it longer, but you pay extra for longer, and you end up with less
weight,
right? Because the water goes away. But you're not losing protein, you're not losing fat because that's all staying there. So you're just losing water weight. But it's changing the flavor. And I ask the rancher, what do you think the optimum time is? And they'll tell you. So Jason, I think, ages his for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And the third cow we got was from Wyoming. And she said also, like, 3 weeks, 4 weeks if you really want it. Don't go over 4. She's like, you can if you want, but you're wasting your money.
Right, because you also, like, some of it rots, so you have to cut that off the outside of it too, so you lose some of that too. Yeah. But dude, I saw there was yesterday on Twitter, somebody had a cast iron stainless steel.
I saw that just at the last minute, yeah.
And I'm really turned into someone I don't like to be, but I saw this steak and I was like, how dare you put that steak on the grill without trimming that fat? Mm-hmm. I was angry. I didn't care about the cast iron or the stainless steel because I'm a carbon steel guy. So, you ever seen that picture with the two girls fighting? It's like carbon steel, stainless steel, cast iron. I'm like out here in the background with carbon steel. And I was like, dude, how dare you cut that? How dare you leave that? I mean, it was like huge hunk. The whole thing just looked gross. And it's like, dude, I've learned from watching like YouTube videos of butchers, like if you want like a better cut, if you want or a more consistent cook,
you gotta cut that off.
Yeah, you gotta cut that off. And then
see what you do.
You taught me this. Yeah. Then you take the fat and you make tallow with it.
Well, you can do two things. You can either chop that off and then save it, reserve it. Assuming you chop it off while it's still really cold. You can refreeze it, and the fat doesn't have a problem. Like, don't refreeze the muscle, but refreezing the fat's not that big a deal. Or, and that's if you're gonna turn it into tallow later. Or you can chop it up into little chunks and
cook it in it.
Cook the fat. So you've cooked the steak, you finish the steak, eat the steak, then you can cook the fat, and that's called cracklins.
Oh right, yeah, cracklins. So I don't like cracklins, but because they had those, we used to do pork cracklins down south, but. Usually I'll get like a ribeye roast, like because it's cheaper and
same thing.
And it's literally like I get to cut it myself and decide how thick I want it. And it's So and I'll get like a pound. I'll have a pound of like fat cap on the edges of each steak and
cut
the
that
gristle,
off. Yeah.
and then I put it in like like a pretty tall stock pot, not like a big stock pot, like something like this, and. Just put on low and let it render for like 45 minutes, an hour, and
I do my rendering with the fat trimmings that I get from the butcher. I do that in a slow cooker overnight.
Yeah. Overnight.
Yeah, because
should I be doing it longer than an hour?
I mean, it's all about
because usually it's kind of like brown by the time the hour's gone by.
In a slow cooker overnight, it's a lower temperature,
right?
So
okay.
For me, it's it's 6 of 1, right? It's also about yield. So like doing it in a slow cooker, I get a lot of yield, and it's like all the solids that are left. It's not very much, but if you do it fast, you got to be more careful because you don't want to burn it. So it's you
have to be careful. About
I think at the end of the day, it's going to be roughly the same.
Yeah,
but you have to watch yours closely, and I don't have to. Like I just throw it in there, turn it on. It's 190 degrees.
You got to watch your ASICs closely. And
yeah, that's true. I do that.
You got to actually. Maybe you'll be watching my ASICs closely someday.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. We're growing. We're growing.
Like the cows, dude. Well, we've already talked about distributed hash a little bit on the show when your co-founder or general partner Rob was here, but for those who maybe missed that episode, go watch it. But yeah, could you give a quick description of like how you guys founded it? What's the mission? And say maybe someone's interested in Bitcoin mining, why they might want to consider hosting with you all instead of on their own.
So distributed hash is we initially founded it as a primarily just goal was privacy focused. And that was it. That's with the concept of, okay, we had a minimum of 5 miners before we would take them. And the idea being that you should be mining at home before that. Like 1 to 4 miners you can do at your house. And not necessarily S9s. We're talking, even modern M30s, M50s, S19s can be done in a residential environment with things like black boxes or other aspects. After 5, it gets difficult because of the power requirements. And
they just don't run enough voltage or amps to the home.
Well, let's say you have a modern home, you probably have 200 to 400 amp service. And the modifications necessary to pull the amperage for 5 or 6 miners starts to get difficult. Okay. And not to mention that the residential rates are not generally very good.
Right.
Now you can do things to mitigate that, like use the heat.
Right.
But after that, it's like, okay, you want to do more, and also the noise. 5, 6, 7 miners gets loud, and it's just
and hot.
Like
you can use 1 miner to heat your home.
Oh, I use 3.
7, you're heating a warehouse.
Yeah. 7, you're heating a warehouse. I use 3 S9 to heat my house. We were talking about using the water, using the miners to heat water for the hotel. And other than the fact that we're going to get rid of the hotel, we would probably do that.
Why make the investment at that point?
Because it's just a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, and nothing ever goes right the first time either. So it's like you don't just plug it in and it works.
Yeah, and the but so distributed hash was founded to do that, and we did the concept was, you can use the Wyoming rules and a Wyoming what's called a Wyoming anonymous LLC. So you put your miners with us. I don't know who you are. I mean, I would know personally who you are, but there's no paperwork that says who you are. Yeah. Those miners sit and just process, and you pay us in Bitcoin, and so there's no paper trail.
So you have to have a LLC to be a customer of yours? You
don't have to anymore. We initially started that way, but we had so many people who just didn't want to do that. It's kind of we now said, here's the best practices.
Right.
Do it or don't.
If you want to do it that way.
Yeah. And
so what are the requirements today other than, I think you said the 5?
It's a 5
miner.
Yeah, it's a 5 miner minimum, because beyond below that it's just too much of a pain in the butt. So we started that way, and then we realized that a lot of people were very attracted to us by the fact that they could do all the privacy focused stuff, but they didn't actually want to do it. So it's like, all right, fine. Like, we'll let you okay, you don't have to have the LLC. That just means that, if somebody were to subpoena us or whatever, or hack us, like, we'd have the information. Some people didn't want to send us Bitcoin, and I don't care if you send me mined Bitcoin or you buy Bitcoin and send it to me. But if you wire me money, it means that my bank account will have a trace from your bank account. And people are like, oh, well, I still want to wire your money. I was like, okay, sure. So we kind of we're not moved away from the privacy focus. We're still privacy focused, and we still have the specs. Like, if you want to do all the if you want to go all out and do all the privacy stuff, we'll help you do it. But it's not like a hard and fast rule. So we kind of got into this whole researching miners, taking the data, and trying to do insights on all of this stuff. And so that's where we partnered with CryptoCloaks to do a modeling of data modeling of the actual in place improvements that his shrouds do. We also did things like we built our own custom monitoring software, and so one of the first things we figured out was that it was the error, or not the error, I guess the manufacturing defect with certain models.
With the gap.
Well, there's that. That's but on the M30s, the power supplies, certain power supplies that the M30s shipped with would fail at 37 degrees Celsius, and others were good up to 50 degrees Celsius.
And what was it again? How could you tell the difference between the two?
It was whether or not they were third-party manufactured.
So OEM. One had like a different stamp on it or something?
Yeah, some of them said What's Power, and some of them didn't.
And which one is the one you want?
You want the What's Power.
Okay.
The What's Power ones are like the ones that were manufactured, like we think, by What's Miner. And then the other ones that don't say What's Power, that just have the model number, we're pretty sure those are like third party. And
you guys have done testing on Bitmain's machines.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then What's Miner is what company?
That what's miner is what's miner. So what they're BT
micro BT.
Micro BT.
Right, so do you do those the only two manufacturer like specs or so that you guys have tested? Have you tried any of like the Canon Avalon miners?
None of our customers have ever sent us one. I mean, if somebody does,
I've never seen them.
I've seen them, but my understanding is that there's a reason why it's the top two and then everybody else. I did have one customer who asked us if we would host these, and we said yes, but A, we don't have any experience with them. B, we don't know if we can get any parts. And C, I mean, you'd be a guinea pig for us. Right. And then he's like, wow, the prices are crashing so hard, I'll just get what's miners.
Right. Well, that's why I guess like why I was even asking. It was like, well,
because they were super cheap,
and they might be even cheaper because they're just, if it's the same efficiency and it's a lower upfront cost, like I don't know.
Yeah,
it might not be worth the gamble. That's why I was asking it.
Well, it could be worth a gamble because it's lower upfront cost, similar efficiency means that it's easier,
shorter
ROI,
to break even, right? Which is my biggest concern
if they're running.
Right. Yeah. Uptime is a factor that not a lot of people consider. They just think they're going to plug it in and have 100% uptime.
Yeah. And that's one of the things. That's why I much prefer what's miners over.
They're just beefier. They're beefier. That's what Rob was saying.
The ant miners have a better efficiency, but it's like the analogy I use. It's the difference between a Ferrari and a Mack truck. Which one? If you're on.
This reminds me of like bicycle parts, because everybody really likes carbon fiber bicycles because they're lighter weight and you can go faster in them. But aluminum is like, I don't know, 80-90% of the it's almost as light, not quite as light. But with aluminum, when you crash, it bends. With carbon fiber, it snaps in half and maybe will impale you.
Yeah.
And so people oftentimes like settle for the aluminum, which is not quite as good, but more reliable, more durable. And it sounds like that may be here as like what? Sure, maybe it's not like the glass cannon, like the S19 XP at 141 terahash, right? But at 3,000 watts, but they can maybe withstand inclement temperatures more.
They can withstand, basically the ant miners, if you have them in ideal conditions, they will go. They're awesome.
That's a big if.
That's a big if.
Especially year round. Like you might have them in ideal conditions for a season, right? Like in the fall here, it's probably perfect because it's not hot, it's not cold, it's like nice and.
A lot of people don't think so. The cold is great for miners to a point,
right?
But cold is actually worse, more dangerous,
right?
Because if the miners shut down for any reason, like a network blip or a power flash, or even the miner itself has a tiny fault in its firmware and just shuts itself off, because that happens not irregularly with ant miners.
Right.
Like they'll just shut themselves off for no reason.
Do they turn themselves back on automatically?
No, ant miners don't. What's miners do? Well, okay. Ant miners do sometimes, not every time, but sometimes.
Like if that was the case, I would need like a beacon system. It's like your shit went off. And then I need like a remote switch to like unplug it and plug it back in, like a PDU or something that like you can toggle on and off.
Yeah, sometimes
that's unplugging it, without actually having to be there.
Well, and sometimes we can you can do a remote start just with the firmware, but other times you actually need to power cycle it. And with we basically don't see many of those problems with
the what's miners.
Yeah, they seem to. Well, and if they do reset the what's miner startup, a lot of people don't like the what's miner startup process because it can take 10 or 15 minutes before it starts hashing again.
Oh, really?
Well, it's slowly warming itself up, which is very good. Whereas the ant miners, they'll just turn right on.
Right away.
If you're starting from room temperature or 40s, 50s Fahrenheit, that's not a big deal.
See,
but if you're starting from like -20,
I didn't realize that what's miners took meaningfully longer to come back online than the ant miners, because one of the things I was looking at is we have like a time of use power plan, and for four hours a day, electricity is like 39 cents a kilowatt or something crazy, and it's like 2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Yep.
So I just don't use electricity during that time, hardly ever, and then the rest of the day, it's like 6 or 5 or something. It's at night, like all throughout the night. On the weekends, it's just the weekdays 2 to 6. It's like 20 hours a week. It's that 30 something cents. And then the other 100 and something hours, it's like 6. So what I had thought was like, okay, well, what if I just programmatically, like 2 p.m. comes around, Antminer shuts off, 6 p.m. comes around, turns itself back on, right? I never wound up doing that just because even with that much downtime per day, the efficiency, like, or the uptime would just, it wouldn't break even in time to justify the upfront cost of the CapEx. But with the WhatsMiner, that would really not be the case if I had to also lose, 15 minutes of that cycling.
So the original WhatsMiner firmwares would take like 30 minutes to reset. Then they added a fast boot mode, which dropped that to between 5 and 10 minutes. It's still a bit longer than the Antminers. The other major downside with the WhatsMiners is that you can't put brains on it. And there's the alternate firmware. And I love
you
brains.
get zero pool fee when you mine with brains pool too.
Yeah.
Which 1% increase in profitability.
A little bit of increase in profitability, but the auto tuning that it does on the
It's even
Antminers
more than
is
1%.
Yeah, you get your money's worth out of that.
Are you finding yourself over or underclocking miners these days?
Right now, I got because of the price, because of the realized price, I've got probably 50-50 running. So those who are running Antminers stock, they're just running them because you can't really do anything. Those running brains, most of them are pushing it because the brains increases the efficiency a bit. Those running WhatsMiners, probably about half of them are in low mode and half of them are normal.
Just to save them power costs.
Just to save, because we that's another study that we did at Distributed Hash was how much efficiency gain do you really get? And you get, so let's say with certain WhatsMiners, this does not generalize to every single model out there, but you lose roughly 20% in power, but only 10% in efficiency or hash. So you gain basically 10%. Now your absolute total hash goes down 10%, but with the absolute power going down to 20%, you're actually doing quite well in that case. But yeah, there's a question of, and so when the price comes down, that actually helps out. But when the price goes up, I expect these people to want to turn back onto normal or even high if it makes sense to do so.
Yeah, man, how quickly the mining landscape changed from financing, like all the miners were hodling their whole stack
to like
everything they mined, hodling it all, and financing S19s 2 years out, and
or even buying, like buying from the manufacturer for delivery, like basically buying futures. Yeah,
like 2 years out, like buying from like securing deliveries, like for 2023 and 2020.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And like, it's no surprise the stocks are all down 90. My friend Bo, who joined for the year-end podcast last episode, or last one that came out, he was like, dude, GBTC, brutal, right? Like, and I was like, dude, that's my best performer. Don't talk about it like that. I was like, how dare you, bro? I'm only down 70% on that. But yeah, I mean, that's been brutal too. Well, I don't really want to get into that though. I'm kind of over talking about GBTC. So, well, so there is one thing that I want to ask, like in relation to distributed hash, and like, obviously you guys are just like a hosting facility and the whole point is to just mine Bitcoin.
Yeah.
What we're seeing and what a lot of the more recent episodes have been about on the pod have been more of this kind of coincidence of once mining Bitcoin with already used electricity or sunk costs, if you will. So to me, that is like after doing a bunch of interviews with people who are in mining and, still got a lot to learn, but that's one takeaway that I kind of came to was that if you want to mine for the long term and be competitive, the more you can kind of double up on these already sunk costs, the more attractive mining as its own thing becomes. So given that, you guys are like hosting at your place as a pure play, right? Like I'm not using that heat. It's warming your building up.
Yeah. Well, so actually, I'll tell you about that. I mean, I'm not using the heat, but the facility we're in is a multi-tenant building, and so our neighbors are using the heat, and they're very happy with it. Now we're not charging them in this case.
Oh yeah, you got to charge them.
I
pass that cost along to the. To you, so that you can lower your hosting fees, or
I should do that,
or raise your margins.
It's difficult to bill for that, but we are giving them at the moment. Giving them
it shouldn't be too difficult. Measure the temperature in the CFM and say, here's your bill.
True. But yeah, for right now, like we're still good neighbors, and we're still just giving it to them.
I mean, and going back to that circular economy, you got to take care of your local people.
But I do use the S9s to heat my house. I have three. I have three of them in my house.
And mining Bitcoin is like a bonus.
Yeah,
because they're not. That is not the purpose of them.
No, it's not.
The purpose is to heat your home.
Well, so
you don't run them in the summer, right?
Correct. I turn them off in the summer because they're S9s. Like
they are unprofitable.
No, they're. But
if you're spending money on heat already, then anything is free money's free money.
If I'm gonna, a kilowatt's a kilowatt, and they're basically space heaters.
Rob was saying something like 90 something, if not darn near 100% of the energy is transferred to heat.
So the amount
consumed, right?
the amount of energy that goes into a miner that is used for computation is minuscule.
Right.
The rest of it is exported as heat. I mean, we're talking
like heat dissipation,
99.9%.
Oh, okay.
Or like it's
all of it. We're going to call it 100%.
From a
rounding error is the computational. Okay.
So the vast majority is the resistive heat. And so if you have a resistive heater that's doing computation, or a resistive heater that's just being a resistor, you're losing a negligible amount. You're losing more in the transmission of power to the things than you are in how much of is computation. So these things are basically just heating my house and giving me money instead of heating my house and not giving me money.
What's like a S9? I mean, it's like 1,000 sats a day, maybe. If not.
Let's see. The three S9. So I have a total of 7. I've got a couple, like they're heating multiple houses. Mine, my parents, my in-laws.
Amazing.
So I've got to think about how many.
The whole family's involved.
Yeah, really. I think roughly the 3 that we're getting are doing about 10,000 a day total. Each, or not each, no.
But again,
total.
Your cost is zero essentially, because this was cost that you would have been spending heating your homes anyway.
Exactly. That's the thing. Because I'm gonna be spending that money heating my house. And the other thing is, all of these buildings are central heat. So what we are actually saving money in the sense that we're not heating the rooms we're not using. Because we're literally just putting the heaters where we are.
Space heater, that's what we do. Yeah, we don't use our space heater or our central AC. I thought about getting a ASIC for that, but I didn't want to do the duct work, and it's probably not much. But
so I'm not even doing the duct work. Like I literally just it's
just in the room.
They're just in the room. And so what we did is
isn't that noisy as all heck for them then?
It was until we replaced all the fans. So we
Noctuas.
Yeah, the Noctuas for the primary fans, and then
which we'll be talking about when Rick comes on with this. He's going to bring the space heater in here.
Yeah,
and we're going to leave it running the whole episode.
Oh, there you go.
White noise machine.
The trick is the power supply fan. That one's the killer. So and he'll talk about that.
I read his guide, and I don't think he mentioned swapping that one out.
The newer version of the guide, I think, does. Because I just downloaded it this morning and I checked it.
This was a couple days ago. I looked at this one.
All right, so it has the power supply in there. It's a bit more of a pain to change that one, but once you change the 2 main ones, you got to run brains, you got to change the fans, and you got to do the power supply fan.
Right.
But when you do that, I mean, we have it in our living room when we're watching a movie and it's just running.
Right. I mean, you can hear the slight noise here and here, the fans. Like it's about like that, just like a white noise machine.
And it's also the other thing that Nocturas do, and this that you can't discount this, is it changes the
decibel
tone, not the decibel,
the tone. Right.
It's a lower pitch,
so which is not as piercing, right?
Yeah. So it's a.
I think maybe you were talking about that, the bit devs.
Yeah. Probably, because I rail on that one a lot because it's a big deal. The higher pitched things are just like grating.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but wouldn't play devil's advocate here. If I'm like an old man, which I will be someday, when you get older, your frequency that you can hear like compressed, so like
it does.
You can't hear the real high range frequencies anymore,
especially if you like to listen to music really loud and go to concerts and things.
So that in that case, like maybe that's like that would be a scenario where maybe the high pitch, like because you're just like deaf to. Okay.
It's not that high.
Got
it's high enough.
It's still in the like mid range of the like if you have like lows, mids, highs, it's still in the mids section.
But it's a definite higher pitch than what the Nocturnes put out. And, and the other thing about the higher one thing about the higher pitch is you may not want the Nocturnes if the higher pitches because they don't penetrate. So if you put it in another room, you might want the
the deeper sound penetrates the rooms.
Lower frequencies go further. Now I don't think that's a big deal. I think
that's why you can hear bass at your neighbors.
But you can't hear the the melody
lyrics,
and treble.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to be a huge problem with the switching from one fan to another. But where it does come to play is you may have here in Colorado, we had that argument a couple months ago with Adams County, and one of their things was they're concerned about the noise, and it's like the miners are putting out high frequency noise, and they're a mile or two,
which it doesn't it drops off. It drops off
much faster. Like the high frequencies just dissipate much faster because they don't have the.
So in that case, like maybe that's a scenario where you'd want the higher frequency fan
because it just won't go as far
because it won't, and nobody is up close where it. Really
because those things are on oil pads, miles from from residential.
There's way louder things going on out there.
Oh well, you drive. I mean, you can hear pile drivers for miles, and you like there was a situation in back in Durham, North Carolina, where I was living. The hotel we had an apartment over it, and it was third floor, and 2 miles away was the stadium. And we could
hear the cheers and all the crowd.
The cheers, we could hear the concerts, we could hear everything because on certain nights when there's the right kind of temperature gradient, it would just funnel straight at our window. But all you could hear was the bass. So, and that's miles away. But you couldn't hear any of you couldn't hear the cheering. You could hear the thumping because of the distance. But and that's also through brick.
Right.
So, but it's like the high frequency stuff, it just dissipates. And of course, it gets scattered and all that. That's why the crack of a gun from a distance is also very different.
You only hear the high pitch or the low pitch part.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that. Like how the frequencies drop off at different paces based on.
Well, it's also if you're putting, like you were talking earlier about doing the ductwork, if you want to put miners into your ductwork, to mitigate the noise, you create 90-degree bends.
Well, that's why the upstream data thing has like those. I was reading the guide about it, and it's like all those little like S things as to like, because the sound's like got to go through this arduous path, which like muffles it and mutes it, compared to just like a straight shot.
Whereas if you had low frequencies, it would just pass through it.
Really?
Yeah. So similarly, like if you have a light path. Basically what happens is the reflections cancel each other out, whereas the low frequencies just pass through it.
Is it loud at y'all's facility?
The actual inside the facility is very loud. Like ear protection is mandatory.
Wow. How did you find the building? Because this was already a building that existed before, right?
In this case, yeah, we're our expansion.
That's like the biggest thing is like the whole, you got to put up a metal building, this whole warehouse, like that takes time.
Well, we found one that needed a tenant and was fine with it and had the power in the vicinity. So we had we expanded the power and we brought more in.
You just had to put a new transformer on
basically,
there.
Yeah. But our expansion is going to be in huts, out, containerized. Probably
off grid.
Not yet. We have a good PPA, so we're going to do on grid first. Off grid, we're toying with
PPAs,
power purchase agreement
with the state,
with the utility,
with the local utility. Is it a monopoly? Just one.
Wyoming is not like Texas. where Texas has got ERCOT and it's
right,
all
that's
that.
all competitive.
Yeah, Wyoming is much more like North Carolina, where it's
Or here in Colorado,
yeah,
we just have Excel.
Yeah, where everything's like controlled. In Wyoming, there's not one big one like Excel. There's a whole bunch of little ones. They're rural cooperatives. But basically, yeah, it's the same kind of thing where they're all like, in order for them to raise rates, they have to go petition with the state, and it takes years. But we got a PPA and all that, and it's all good. But we're doing the kind of, they have substations that are underutilized, so we're going to go take power from those.
And so what was your, like, when you and Rob were brain dreaming this up, like, what was your pitch to the state, to the whomever you had to get on board to sign to okay it?
Well, it was kind of timing was good. Everything, Bitcoin was riding high. This is,
in Wyoming, it's Wyoming,
and
which
it's Wyoming.
Is quite the
they know it. They understand
well-adopted state.
Or at least they understand it better than other states.
Right. Like, they do have DAOs as a legal entity structure. So
yeah, they do.
We'll see.
We'll see. But the state overall, the people in the state get it more than other places. So
it's a bit more of a liberty-minded state.
I'll tell you a joke afterward. I'm not going to put it on the air, but
okay.
I might get some pushback from people I know in Texas.
Okay.
That we got some pushback, and we got some pushback from them for actually entirely reasonable reasons, not like, what's this Bitcoin crap? Like, I don't want to deal with this. No, they had a previous customer who was a Bitcoin miner, or we'll call it a crypto miner, because I don't know if they were doing Bitcoin or if they were doing other things, but who just skipped out in the middle of the night. So like
why?
Well, but there's
you might not have the answer to this, but this is more of just like a rhetorical thing. Why are there so many freaking scams in this industry, dude? I've never seen an industry just more rife with scams. It's just, and like, it's affinity scamming too, because it's not usually Bitcoin. It's usually other things under the guise of crypto that like put a Bitcoin logo somewhere so that, like, for the people who don't know any better. I'm just so sick of it, dude. Between FTX and like Voyager and like BlockFi, like I'm run. I can't even it would take 5 minutes to name all the companies that have like scammed people, and like the NFTs and like Jake Paul and like, dude, all the influencers. Like, why? What is it about freedom money and the ability to self-custody your own time that attracts the worst degree of humans on earth? I just don't get it. I mean, sorry if I'm like raising my voice. I'm just like, it really triggers me, dude, because I view it as a threat to the success of Bitcoin.
It is. It's a huge threat, and it's a problem because you got it taints the field. It taints Bitcoin in the eyes of normies. And at the end of the day, if this transition is going to go and Bitcoin's going to become the world's reserve currency, I mean, none of this matters, quote, but it does matter because it can make an easy transition, or it can make a hard transition. It can make it take longer. It can make it faster. And the more scamminess, the more bullshit is out there, the more resistance you're going to get from normies, and the longer it's going to take, and the harder it's going to be.
Why do you think it is that this industry specifically attracts people who like just think it's fine to just like pack up shop and leave in the middle of the night?
I think it's just because it's easy. It's easy
because it's unestablished, like it's early and it's new, and people don't get it.
Well, if you look at the history of stocks, right? I mean, you've got to go back hundreds of years.
Yeah, I guess. Penny stocks and all were big fraud things too back in the day.
Well, and the forgetting which one it was, but there was a big securities scandal in like the 17 or 1800s where the guy just sold all this stuff and just disappeared with a huge amount of wealth. I mean, because there was, and I'm not going to say regulation is the answer, because I don't necessarily 100% agree with that, but it's new, and people aren't. Bitcoin Bitcoin
because it's cryptography.
Yeah.
People think that they can like hide behind it.
They think
it's anonymous.
They think they can hide behind it. They think it's anonymous, and they think that it's new when it's really
not.
It's really not.
Cryptography's not new.
Well, cryptography's not new. Money's not new.
The only thing that's new is poo-poo coin.
Yeah. And they think that, we're going to do this poo-poo coin, or we're going to do a Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, and it's big blocks, and it's going to be faster, and it's going to be better. And
watch out, dude! You might get sued.
That's
all right. You're a lawyer.
Yeah,
you won't have attorney fees.
Yeah. And I know I'm not.
Actually, as a matter of fact, you better make your billable hours very expensive. That way, when you hire yourself to defend yourself.
Yeah,
$10,000 an hour, and then he's got to pay your attorney fees.
Well, we're not gonna mention the individual by name.
You shall not be named.
But all this stuff is, I mean, it's all bullshit, and it's all affinity scams. But you can mislead people thinking it's somehow different and new when it's really just the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And people will buy it because because they're not educated, and like I wouldn't go out and try to bug check my car. Like I'm not mechanically inclined that way. But I'm gonna trust somebody, a mechanic.
What do you mean bug check?
Well, like try to fix, if
do car maintenance.
Yeah.
It's the timing belt that's off.
Yeah,
is that a thing in a car? I'm throwing out car words. I'm hoping I'm right.
But I know enough to change my own oil and change the tire and all that crap. But
okay, that's good.
But I'm not going to go and try to disassemble my own engine. I'll let somebody else deal with that. And I'll trust them. But so a lot of people are used to this. In the financial industry, like people will buy crappy products because they're trusting the people who
sell it to them.
I mean, how often is an annuity really a good choice?
Never.
Yeah.
I've actually, I take that back. I saw one good annuity that was sold in the 80s at like 13% guaranteed step up every year. Like, okay. And then it went to like 0% interest rates, but they were locked in fixed rate annuity when interest rates were in the teens. And that's the only time I was like, well, at that time, that person was still screwing you. But it worked out okay for you. Yeah. It could have worked out better if you did some other things, but all things considered, this is not too bad.
Yeah, but so people buy these things. They're sold these things. They buy these things because they're trusting people. And similarly, I mean, until FTX blew up, I mean, Bitcoiners knew it was a scam. We knew it was they were trading fractional, and they were paper.
Anything with the token is just a huge red flag.
But people trusted him. He was on the cover of magazines. He was the mainstream media was propping him up.
Right.
So
disgusting.
Yeah, I mean it's the same kind of problem we were talking about earlier with why do people sell when they should buy and buy when they should sell? Because it's the herd mentality. They're just, dude, I trust, I think I trust, said this guy is cool.
It really, I mean, herd mentality. We've been talking about like beef and all that. Like, I mean, it's true though. Like, right? It's we like to think of humans, and especially Westerners, as civilized and like nuanced, intelligent, reasonable thinking people, right? But we're like 2 steps away from cows in that like herd mentality, because we still especially we're in groups. Like we're in individuals like this. I think there's a bit more of ability to reason and stuff. But you put like us, okay, I'm just take like us too. Yeah. Like when you and me are just sitting here, like we could reason and have like nuanced discussion. Put us in a room of 500 Bitcoin. It's a mob mentality. It's and it's just amazing, like how when you group like that, how psychology changes.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoiners aren't different. They're canceling on Twitter.
Oh God, yeah.
But like you meet Bitcoiners in person, they're some of the nicest people. Like I really haven't gotten into too many arguments with Bitcoiners in person because we always see eye to eye usually. But like on Twitter, it's like, holy crap, if you didn't know these people better, like a lot of them like, dude, you really said that on Twitter? Like, I thought you were like a man of God, like religious person. Like that's some hateful shit you just put out there. Not you, right?
But I mean, it's a thing where first of all, I think Twitter does that. I think it's
the defense of being anonymous online,
and
the armor,
and you see I think just a couple weeks ago, there's a big dust up where Jordan Peterson was like, nobody should be anonymous online ever. And of course, I strongly disagree with that.
So do I.
But at the same time, it does create problems that we as a species aren't equipped with because our technology is moving faster than our biology. And so we just have to accept the good with the bad in this case, like the anonymity online, unrestrained freedom of speech, very powerful, very important things that we need to have because the downsides are worse.
Right.
But at the same time, we just have to accept that mistakes will be made. And
right. Well, it's trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
Compromises, like Bitcoin's got a lot of things going for it and why it could succeed, but it's not the best at everything, right? Like that's why Lightning Network came about, because it wasn't great for buying coffee and merchant transactions.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have to update the global state of the ledger for every time someone buys a coffee.
Yeah. Well, the global ledger is one of the most important aspects of it because it allows you to audit the entire thing.
Right.
And if you literally polluted it with hundreds of billions of minuscule transactions, it would become impossible, which is why big blocks are a bad idea.
Right. Which you can read in the Block Size Wars. Just working through that. I'm about halfway now, and it's like, I mean, I know the story from working in the industry for several years and just being online, but Jonathan Beer, I'm not sure how you say his last name, but he does a great job of like personifying it, or like
bringing it down to
into a story. And like making it a story. It's like, you can like read about like these BIPs and like the Montreal Agreement and SegWit 2X, New York, but like when you turn it into a story with characters and motivations and emotions, is like you remember them better.
Well, you remember them better, and you also, it humanizes it because you realize that it's
you can connect the lessons.
Yeah, you connect the lessons, and at the end of the day, it's just people, right? And so certainly some of the people are bad actors, absolutely, a lot of them probably, but at the same time, you can be. I think it's at least back then, not so much now, but back then, before, while the block size wars were happening, or before they were starting up, or when they were getting going, I think it was potentially reasonable for somebody to say maybe we should do bigger blocks,
right?
And because they hadn't really fully fleshed out why there's a bad idea, and of course now we know, now we get it, and
I think that's why people are so hesitant to make changes to Bitcoin. Because we might not understand the long-term implications of things we do today. So we need to be extremely meticulous when we submit updates, and only really when it's necessary, not even a nice to have, a must have. That's why there was so much pushback on
BIP 119.
Jeremy Rubin's BIP. And,
check template verify.
CTV. And I was reading about the block size wars. I was reading earlier today, actually. And I noticed Luke Jr. was like one of the authors, him and Peter Wheel. I met
Woolley, yeah. I think it's Woolley.
I need to get better at names, so I'm sorry for whoever messed up names. But something that you had said is like, we're still people at the end of the day, right? Like the author, one of the co-authors of SegWit, one of the most, I would say, hardcore Bitcoiners in the space. Recently lost what seems to be quite the majority of his holdings.
If not the majority, a very large amount anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it was millions of dollars at today's value. So,
but it was that's one of those things that people also have to get. Like, the core devs aren't like all powerful. They're just normal people.
They're human, right? Exactly.
Maybe.
And that's the thing. It's like Bitcoin might be this protocol that is flawless, even though it's not. It's got issues, and I've read about like chain splits that have happened in the past, and double spends that eventually go back because block reorganizations and all. But people forget that like Bitcoin is a system, it's a tool, and the end goal is to make humans' life better in some capacity, whether it makes trade more efficient or makes like sovereignty more approachable or more reachable rather. But at the end of the day, right? Like Luke didn't lose his Bitcoin because of a problem with Bitcoin.
No.
Luke lost his Bitcoin because humans make mistakes.
Yep. And
they're going to keep making them. Even the devs, even the core devs But people have used that as a reason to say Bitcoin core dev can't even hold on to keys. Here's why you shouldn't either. Dude, that's like, that almost angers me, because it's like, it's one thing if you're just like, Bitcoin's a scam, like, but okay, now you're taking what you know is not the truth and spinning it to push your
and to push a narrative that's a false narrative.
That's taking away from the cause that you say that you are here to push forward, right? Like, and then at the same time, in the same breath, say, "Well, I actually self-custody mine still." It's like, dude, go somewhere, bro.
And it's disgusting that they're doing that. But what people, I think it's a disingenuous argument, because you could say, okay, the core dev didn't even do this. I'm thinking, well, so what? Like,
because he's human.
He's a human, and
he had more confidence in his own ability, which actually made him do something that was less secure.
And in fact, like, that's actually a thing you can see in professionals, all the time, that they think they have so much knowledge that they think they're so much better that they
make
ignore
careless mistakes and
because they I know this, so they elide over
an expert, right?
Yeah. I mean, as an example, how many lawyers out there don't have an estate plan? Like, people who literally took estate planning in law school, how many don't have it? I mean, not going to name names, but I know some that don't have it.
Sure.
And but it's a thing that every lawyer knows they should have. But do they really?
I've that reminds me of, I've talked to some people who call it, like, what is it, 8 figures, like 10 mil plus net worth, didn't have a will.
Yep. And
didn't have a trust in nothing. I'm just like, how'd you make it this far, dude?
Well, and it's I don't need it. I'll get to it eventually.
It's like, you might die now. You might die right now on this phone call.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Well, and similarly, we don't know Luke's whole situation, but core dev, I'll get to it.
Right.
Like, I know what I need to do. I didn't do it.
That's, and that's a human thing. It's like, there's just a level of comfortability that people, complacency, I'm good, This is why, like, I'm so adamant about, you buy Bitcoin, you better get your wallet set up in the same one swift motion. You better set up the wallet and send it to the wallet and back up your seed and put it in the tamper evident bag. Do it all at once, because if you leave one step,
you'll forget
for later. You just may not come back to it, and you just may or you may forget, and you may get careless, and you may set up a multi-sig wallet, go through all this crap to create like 3 different keys, and they're all, and then put them all in the safe together.
Oh yeah.
And then your house burns down.
Yeah.
And then they're all gone.
Yep.
Right. Whereas if you had the seed phrase, just the one, you would have been able to recover it, but you actually made it worse for yourself because your output descriptor was also in the safe. So if you just had the seed phrase in your cloud, you might have been able to recover it. So I see this all the time where people get complacent. They get too comfortable. I try my best to practice what I preach, and like, I am paranoid as all heck, dude.
Yeah.
And I hope that it's for good reason. I hope I'm not just like paranoid and like, increasing all that, like, stress in my life for no reason. But
it's the complacency that makes you forget steps in your own life.
Right.
And it's even for experts, it's often easier to describe to someone else what they should do and tell them and lock them down. And then in your own life, just forget.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, I know this. Part of the thing, if you are married, is making sure that your partner can recover.
Of course.
Because what happens?
They can't do it like in the banks where they just change the title.
Well, and if you happen to, get incapacitated and they need access, they need to know how to do it.
Right.
So, I'll be realistic. My handwriting is
mine's
complete
terrible.
Shit. So when I, in the early stages, when everything was handwritten, I wrote down the seed phrase and I made sure that my wife could read it. And I had to read it back to me, and I had her copy it.
Yeah,
and so
in her handwriting.
And so we basically checked everything. And because I wanted to make sure that, like, if there was a situation, she understood A, how to get to everything, B, how to recover it.
Yeah.
And go all through it. Now, my children are too young to do that, but when they do get older, they'll go through the whole thing.
Now,
of course, we've graduated from paper to stamped and steel, which is a better long-term solution. But then you can find it.
I would encourage you to put that in a tamper evident package. Mm-hmm. Take the steel and then put that in a translucent tamper evident package. That way, because the steel, like obviously the material is not going to degrade. Yeah. But you don't know if somebody's taking a picture of the steel seed words. And like, who cares if it's in steel if somebody's got a digital copy of them in your phone? So the tamper evident bag, with certainty it's never been viewed. Mm-hmm. They make clear tamper evident bags too, which obviously you would not want.
And then in case, unless you have one of those steel where the steel is
where it's like up embossed. Yeah. Oh well, that's
where you have to open
where
it
they're
up.
Clamped, right? But you could unclamp it, take a picture of it, and clamp it back.
That's true.
Whereas the tamper evident bag, you can't reseal it.
Yeah.
So like and the bags have numbers on them.
That was you pop them
so
open.
Even if somebody like opens your tamper evident bag, writes your seed phrase down from your steel plate, gets a new tamper evident bag because they brought it with them, reseals it because they're slick because they've thought it through. Tamper evident bag has a number on it.
Yeah.
I guess if they were able to like spoof the number, now we're really getting
then they're really like then
you thought that
if after
you knew the tamper evident bag's bag number before you were an attacker, that's some deep shit, dude. Like you had to have some like man on the inside. Like,
well, if they are after you like they're gonna get you.
If they're after me, I would highly encourage you to go after someone with a lot more money, because you're going to go through a lot of effort for very little return.
All security is about that, right? It's about a trade off between because if somebody is really like if somebody has unlimited resources to come after you, they're gonna get you.
Right.
Like the question is
unlimited
risk return, right?
So that's what I'm saying. Like I mean, sure, like,
and that's the other thing. It's like we're talking about self custody. Like I tell people, you can store Bitcoin on your phone. It's fine.
Right.
If it's like $10.
Right. I usually say like $100.
Or
I say I would never keep more Bitcoin than the phone is worth. Well, that's what I tell them.
A, more Bitcoin than the phone is worth, or B, like how much if you were walking around downtown city, how much cash you keep in your pocket?
Don't keep any more Bitcoin than that either in your wallet.
And so but if you also, you don't need to spend, hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars on a custody solution or securing yourself with keys that are geographically distributed for $50.
I got to earn a living somehow.
Well, no, I'm saying,
come on, man.
But what I'm saying is, it's about like you got to figure out, and of course, it's about how much. What are you securing? Like effectively, you wouldn't buy a $10 million safe to store a Tic Tac.
Correct.
Yeah, and you wouldn't.
Well, right, and I use that same like logic too. It's like, I mean, the level of security that your stack needs is really contingent on how big it is,
and how big it's going to be in 10 years.
Yeah, how bullish you are, and also like how you do it is determined on the risks that you're most concerned about, right? Because like
if you're worried about external attackers, then you'll do something different than if you're worried about yourself.
If I'm worried about external attackers, just an example, Brain Wallet's probably I mean, like, not one that you create with song lyrics, but like literally just memorizing 24 word seed phrase. You don't want to have it written down anywhere. You can't stop them. Like if somebody comes with their gun, like they can do whatever, right? Like if it's in your head, you just don't tell it to them. I mean, look.
That was the guy in Germany who was like refused to tell him what the seed phrase was, and they ended up because he was under arrest, and they ended up releasing him because he's just like, I'm not going to tell you,
right? I mean, and there's some downsides to that, right? Because if you get hit over the head, now no one knows your seed phrase, and that for your family. Yep. This is why like multi-sig to me seems like a good solution most of the time for stacks that are meant to be hodled for long term. And that's because then you give like your heir a key. You create a majority quorum, and you have that like flexibility in place ahead of time
to
plan for things, because you don't know what might happen if you're gonna have a heart attack, or if your house is gonna burn down, or you're gonna both get in it. You and your wife are gonna get an airplane crash together because you're going to the Bahamas because Bitcoin went to $1 million, and now my wife knows my seed phrase and pin codes too. Oh, well, you both died, so now you're really like people. That's really why like I don't know that. Like security there is no silver bullet. It truly is so much of a
you have to figure out what's
your personal model
risk profile,
right? What's your risk profile? What's the risk you're most concerned about? What's the likelihood of those risks? And then how do we take corrective or preventative action so that we mitigate the chance of that happening?
Yeah, because the vast majority of people out there don't got like the external attack vector aside from hacking isn't that big a deal. It's mostly
broke.
Well, yeah, most people broke, but most people are the ones who are going to lose their shit.
Right.
In
the nature of that person who was saying like about Luke Jr. and how this is exactly why people shouldn't self-custody. I will give them an ounce of credit in that like most people will lose their funds more likely than they will get attacked, and like what happened with Luke. And if you don't think you can self-custody, first off, I would challenge you to reassess and see if that is actually the case, right? But if you truly, like, I've met some people who I'm just like, you know what? You shouldn't self-custody because you're a liability yourself. And I will tell them that. And I'm like, you're my friend, but your life's a train wreck, bro. And that person shouldn't self-custody. So, like, I think there is a case where some people probably shouldn't self-custody. But the only reason it should be is because that person is like not up to the maturity level of personal responsibility to where they could. But like blanketly saying that this is why because of an attack.
Yeah.
When it was really the attack, that's never the case. It's usually lost because of carelessness, right? Yeah. Well, and this was carelessness, I would say, and still in some degree, but
it's careless because you had a non-multi-sig thing stored on a network connected computer, and somebody got to it
and called it cold storage.
Yeah, which is I think
it's not cold storage.
Yeah, it was best lukewarm. I'm not the progenitor of that one. I saw that on Twitter.
Who was the first person that said that you saw?
The first person, I think I saw Jameson Lopp say that, but I'm not 100%.
I think Jameson's he's a funny cat, dude.
But it was fun. But
it's lukewarm.
And I don't mean to make fun.
I guess it's called lukewarm. Oh my god,
not to make light of the guy, but it was
life's short. You got to make light of it.
And but that's why we have so many different solutions, from writing it down, putting it on a piece of paper, self-custody, all the way through collaborative custody, through joint custody, through multi-sig with a party like Casa, or
collaborative Casa, Unchained, Keeper. I was looking at
Nunchuck.
Yeah. Well, their app's super buggy. I don't use them. I try out all of them because I want to know what I'm competing against when I'm selling. And like what the competition is, and have educated viewpoints on like why or why not that would be a good solution. Keeper's legit, dude.
I'll have to look at that.
It's in beta testnet only.
Okay.
So you can't use it with real funds yet, but it's like pretty similar to Casa, Unchained, a lot of that stuff. You compare like the tap signer or the cold card, NFC or Ledger. I think Trezor's coming soon. Foundation Passport. You also could do a hot wallet. They have a server key that you could use, or you can use a friend's key.
Oh.
Like, so you have the ability to do like collaborative, like you could be one of my keys, or they could be one of my keys, like Keeper themselves. Or I could have one on my phone, or I could use one of many different type of hardware devices. So they really give you a lot of different choices on how you want to do it. And I think this is good. Like, obviously it's competition for us, like, but at the same time, like, competition is good for the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's good.
Right?
For the ecosystem.
It's not good for companies, because competitions erode profits and distribute the or rather they remove the privatization of the profits and distribute them to the consumers as a surplus instead.
Well, competition is capitalism to function needs competition. If you don't have competition, your capitalist society is really just
command.
Command, yeah, but it's like corporate socialist.
Well, that's like what I mean. Some industries are like that, like the utility industry that we were talking about. Most of it's completely, it's like a duopoly or a regulated monopoly. But no, I just remember reading Peter Thiel's book 0 to 1, and he's like, competition is the enemy of profit. You do not want competition. Trust me. As a consumer, you want nothing but competition, because that compresses the company's margins, makes you get more for your money. But as a producer, as a company, the last thing you want is competition. Like, Oh, like, and I see, and after I read that book, I saw like some stuff on like Twitter. Some Bitcoin CEOs are like, you know, competition is good. Like, it's good for, and I'm like, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this sucks because your revenues are down and like they're taking business market share from you. But it is good for the community, and it is good for the greater ecosystem. And Bitcoin's kind of this weird thing where, like, if the ecosystem grows, it kind of like gives it back to your company. Whereas like in a privatized, like let's say a Visa, like there's no benefit to if you're MasterCard if Visa benefits, you don't, right? Like it's direct competition.
Well, so one of the things about Bitcoin is that because it's a unitary money,
the open network, right?
Yeah. Well, not just an open network. I'm talking like just even writ large. The
what does that mean?
The monetary, not just the monetary network, but the entire concept of a of a fixed money supply means that any improvement that I make to society, not just to the money, not just to the system, but any improvement that I make to society gets embodied in the money itself.
And the value of it.
Whereas
that's why it's deflationary.
That's why it's deflationary. But so let's think about, we had the last couple of months, the was it Mind Journey, Mid Journey, GPT-3, chatbot, all of these AIs have been going crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast they're improving too.
Well, in a fiat system, all of the benefits to society from those things are going to be captured by either the company itself or the government by inflation. So the company itself is going to keep a lot of it,
right? And
then inflation is going to get all of the rest of the value. Whereas in a deflationary currency like Bitcoin, all of the benefit to society that these things create, all of the improvements to productivity,
distributed to all the holders.
All the holders get it in proportion to how much they have, of course, but it all accrues to the money itself.
Have you seen Croesus's Bitcoin real estate chart? We talked about this, and I think I might have talked about this in the episode with Adam, or maybe it was with Rob. It was with Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, because we joked. It was how he opened, because I was like, oh, this is, Rob was like, we're just renaming this the Croesus Simp Podcast. And yeah, Rob, we were talking about that, how with like the current, you could only own the internet, like you could only own the private companies that built on the internet and funneled the profits from the internet to their own shareholders.
Yep.
Whereas like you can do that, you know, if you want to buy shares in Coinbase, you can. But you can also skip all that bullshit entirely and just go straight to the protocol itself, which accrues the rest of the value. Yep. Sure, Coinbase is going to accrue some of it because they're a company. You know, they do things better than people in some ways, other companies. But
anything extra,
you don't have to, right? It's not like either you're bidding up this overvalued stock because it's the only way to get ownership of this revolutionary technology, or it goes to the government.
Yeah, it goes to everyone.
It's neither of those are good choices.
And because the government is just going to burn it. Like
the Cantillon, right? Yeah. It's Cantillon effect.
Which means it's really not going to the government. It's going to
the ultra rich.
The ultra rich who are closest to the
cartel.
Yeah.
Do you think that America is a cartel?
I think everything's
in
a
like
cartel.
in the big, like the most general sense. Like when I think of, you know, I've watched like some of the Narcos shows on Netflix and all. And I'm just like, United States is like that cartel that got so big that like it just couldn't be stopped. And now we're in charge. Like it's a legal cartel. It's like the mob.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if you don't give me 30% of what you make, I'm going to cut your fingers off. That's what fucking taxes are.
No, I mean, that's
like what?
That's we
live under the mob.
Yeah, well, that's basically what all governments are. It's the largest cartel.
It's the biggest mob, the one that made it.
Yeah,
to
the one that made it to the top. That takes for itself the monopoly and violence, and uses that to enrich itself through taxes,
through creation of money,
and
all Bitcoin is saying is like, hey, like let's just take that little part out, because the reality is that United States government or whatever, the state. Look, if there's a vacuum of power, another mob or another organization, it might be smaller, it might be like, you know, a little small private military. Believe me, like there's not just going to be this power vacuum at the top, and people are just all going to live in anarchy and hold hands, or I don't know, like what.
Well, Bitcoin in that sense is a lot like the Constitution, and I know a lot of
like a framework.
Well, in a sense that the Constitution is imperfect in this sense, but it's supposed to be a limitation on government power. Now, it's a limitation on government power so much only to the extent that the government decides to respect
Follow
it.
it.
And follow it. So it's imperfect in that sense, but it's also more perfect than a lot of the other situations we have in the world for government. So
what does it say? Like the democracy is the best of the worst kind of, or it's the best worst kind of government or something.
There's always it's the best of all the bad solutions. Or something.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, best of all the shitty. Yeah.
But in this case, Bitcoin, being that it's a voluntary system that everybody can join or not,
or leave,
but because of the way it's designed, nobody can control it. So if everyone is in it, no one group can unilaterally say, yeah, this whole freedom of speech thing, we don't like that anymore, so we're just going to ignore it. So, but you can't do that in Bitcoin, right? So if assuming everybody's in it. Now, right now, we're in a situation where it's monetizing itself. It's coming to fruition.
Right. It's like a preteen going through those growing pains, got acne all over it, just shot up growth spurts, can barely walk right because it's still getting used to being 6 foot tall. Yeah.
But once we get past all that, and it's a dominant thing, it's a limitation on the power of the final
state.
power of the state.
Right.
And in a way that where the state can't ignore it in the same way that it can't. Like we saw the Patriot Act. We know that they can. That the United States government isn't supposed to have general warrants, but we kind of do.
I watched an interview this morning of a hacker. His name was Gummo.
I haven't seen that yet.
It's like 2 years old. It was a 45-minute interview. It was kind of like not like a confessional thing, but it was kind of like very silent, like not a lot of questions. He was just like, here's my story. He was just like telling his story. And man, he was like, everything you put out, he's like, there is no such thing as privacy. Yeah. If you think you have privacy, think again.
Yeah, everything's out there.
And then he said one thing about the RFID or the car clicker.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, people are just so oblivious. They hit that unlock thing and there's a radio wave traveling to your car. I got a little intercept device. Thank you. Nah, that's my $120,000 car.
Yep.
Unbelievable. And we just like throw caution. Like, dude, I need multi-sig to start my car. Like, and this is like truly, I think we're going there because like with LastPass breach now, like I'm like so, like I said, I'm paranoid as all hell. I'm so paranoid. I use my real name online. I don't know why.
Well,
because of the podcast.
Well, the podcast. I mean, I didn't.
Better be worth it. Please subscribe. So doxing myself was worth it. Thanks.
I mean, I grew up. I graduated college in 2000, so I'm a bit older. But back then, we didn't. I mean, some people did, but a lot of us were growing up then. We just used our real name. We didn't think about it. We didn't. So like I was doxed early on, and then. Yeah, so
posting things of Facebook and stuff, and just like not even thinking about like this will be here 500 years from now.
I mean, hell, my initial username online was just my initials, and I didn't care.
Yeah, people with their birthdays and their usernames. And
I'm a lot more careful with my kids than I was
because we've learned because we've made the mistakes and we've learned and. But I mean, now they use it so much more too. They leave more artifacts.
I don't publish photos of them online.
Oh, no.
But I mean, I do. I mean, I take photos of them on my phone, and they're in the phone. I mean, I know that means that they're getting organized. Like, but it's similar.
It's like where are you the spectrum? Like where is like okay, here's where I draw the line. For some people, it's way over here. For some people, it's way over here. It's like security is like what's your
but you also got to realize. All of these things that we think about when you go down the privacy rabbit hole, you realize, oh wait, I'm leaking all this information everywhere.
That's you
got to realize it's not that people are doing this like willy nilly because we are, but society at the moment kind of still works,
right?
Like that's almost the weirdness of it. It still fucking works, like badly.
Right.
I mean, and we definitely need to fix things, and we have all of these attack vectors, but all these attack vectors are lying out there. And that's one of BitDevs a couple days ago. And this is where I think that when we had that talk a couple minutes ago about how, you shouldn't self-custody because it's too dangerous.
Right.
Well, but once you realize all this shit's out there and all these attack vectors, you got to fix all these, you got to plug all these holes. People will start to realize that. I mean, it's similar to how, before Elon Musk took over Twitter, you had, all this censorship on Twitter and all the a large chunk of, say, let's call it the large chunk on the right side were saying, Twitter's is suppressing our speech, and the left wings were saying, oh no, they're not. It's not a big deal.
Until
whatever.
it starts happening to them.
Well, and then Elon takes over and starts opening everything up, and we see all the Twitter files. We see that all this stuff is happening, and all the the whole left wing people is like, wait, now we got to go to Mastodon because we don't want to get censored by Elon, or we don't like all these right wingers there. So I think that
which Mastodon is.
Well, Mastodon's Mastodon, right? But at the same time, it's like people start, until they're getting attacked, they're not going to realize it. So now, then you have LastPass. LastPass gets hacked. So it's like, okay, well, LastPass was a centralized custodian of your passwords,
right?
And now,
thank goodness they use zero knowledge encryption.
Well, there's some arguments out there that not even that was good enough for some people.
Oh, if you used a poor master password.
Well, I think it's somebody who is an Ethereum guy who said he had
lost his wallets. Yeah, I saw that.
And of course, why are you storing your wallets on LastPass? But that aside,
I have more questions than answers on that. But
yeah, of course, because is that an elaborate boat attack too? Is it? Yeah, I mean, but now people start to realize that all of these things that they either thought was safe or they knew weren't safe, but they were using anyway. Maybe we should. The promise of Bitcoin in the decentralization of money starts to look really good when you start in the decentralization of everything, because
identity,
all this stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, Nostr, right? That's like a public-private key social media network. That's the thing, is that we have these rules in place, but we're rewriting the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the sovereign individual talks about so much. Is
like
technology kind of out-invents the government's ability to enforce their control, which is the game of cat and mouse, where it just keeps we figure out a way to get over their controls, and then they figure out a way to put new controls on that system, and then we figure out a new system, and it just keeps going. If
you think about it, though, a lot of these controls boil down to KYC,
right?
And I'm with Matt Odell and Marty Bent that KYC is the illicit activity, because KYC basically assumes that everyone is a criminal,
right?
And
there is no privacy. That's
some people will say, well, you don't need privacy if you're not doing anything illegal. It's like, okay, well, I have two responses to that. One, bullshit. So if your argument is you don't need privacy because you're not doing anything illegal, it's like, okay, when you and your partner are getting intimate, I'm just going to stand there.
Right.
And you're going to be okay with this because you're not doing anything illegal.
It's not illegal.
Right? It's not illegal, but you clearly want privacy, or your personal health information. I want to right. you and your doctor are talking, and you don't need privacy because you're not doing anything illegal.
Right.
But really, you want everybody to know that you have acid reflux, whatever.
Right. No, I know what you mean.
I mean, privacy is key to individuality.
Right. I believe it's
without privacy, you aren't a person. You without the ability to have what's in your head.
That's
in your
what
head.
I'm so fearful of with Neuralink and all. I think they want to be in our head.
Yeah,
I truly think
I know they do.
They want to be in our head, to even the thoughts that I think, because they pretty much got it already. I've got a Google phone. It's in my pocket. It's listening to everything I say.
Well, that's true.
It's so anything that goes on around me, it hears.
Mm.
Half the things I see, it probably picks up on through the camera. The only thing I really don't know is what I think and don't audibly express or type. Because I don't even have to say it. I could type it and it'll still know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even have to post it because I could type it and backspace it and it'll be I still know.
Yeah. But even
the only thing is if I think it.
Well, and technically, even if you're typing it on a typewriter, if that thing is being able to pick up the audio, it could potentially know which keys you're pressing based on the clicking and the sound.
That's some very fine-tuned machine learning.
They would have to.
Yeah.
They would have to be really coming after you for that. But it's not impossible.
But yeah, it's
But the other side of the KYC is all KYC is there for is because the government's fucking lazy.
Yeah.
You know what? For the vast majority of human history, we didn't have all this shit. And you know how they've solved it? Fucking police work. Do your damn job.
Yeah.
And to this day, nobody can point to KYC, and people have mentioned this many times, but nobody can point to KYC actually solving a crime.
No.
Except, okay, now we can, I think. We have that situation where those guys were shooting transformers in California, and it was their cell phone that pinged off of towers, and they correlated the cell phones, and they caught them because of that.
Oh, yeah.
But like the KYC in banks and stuff, like point to that solving a real crime. Like,
it's surveillance. I mean,
it's surveillance. Like, and so you're in.
It's the mob wanting to make sure that they're getting their cut.
Yeah,
that's what it is. I mean, I wish I didn't sound so like despondent about it, but that's what it is. We're fighting the mob. The mob says we are in charge. We get our cut. If you don't like it, too fucking bad.
Yep.
And there's no other way to go. Because if you try to leave here, guess what? You're going to go to the other mob, and where it's even worse. Like you had said, it's the what was the best of the best of the worst or something.
Yeah, the least bad solution.
The least bad solution is like.
But even now, at
least we let you argue. At least in America, we will let you speak in public about how much you hate the mob. You still got to do everything we tell you.
Well, and
at least you can say you don't like it.
But even if you decide you like the other mob better for whatever reason,
you still can't leave without paying a huge cut.
Yeah, you got to give up half your shit to leave.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, assuming you have a net worth of
$2 million,
which ain't going to be much in the future.
Of course, they don't. All that, all those, the $10,000 benchmark and all that, the $600. They keep bringing it down.
Like, okay, we'll wrap up in a second because I want to talk about Wyoming taxation regulation, like Wyoming crypto adoption, and one of the things we'll go into that. So Cynthia Lummis put forward this bill about the $600 exemption, so you can spend Bitcoin with $600. What do you think about that? Because I have two thoughts. One is like, it's progress. The other is like, nope, it's a half measure. I want a full measure or nothing at all, because $600 is going to be a dinner bill eventually. And I don't feel like having to, play the game of like, oh, this is $5.99. I don't have to report it. Oh, this is $602. Like, I got to pay capital gains on this. Like, it's got to be a real number, or it's got to be a number that's then indexed for inflation every single year. It just can't be a $600 arbitrary amount.
Yeah.
Like, I literally could spend more than $600 at the grocery if I needed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's not tax exempt, so I got to do 2 transactions and pay 2 on-chain fees. What do you think? Like, is it progress or is it not enough?
Well, so a friend of mine and I were actually talking about something like this earlier today, and yes, it's progress. I think it's definitely progress. And the reason why I say it's progress is because there's a lot of problem in the Bitcoin space, well, in humanity in general, but in the Bitcoin space, that the perfect is the enemy of the good. And specifically, the perfect is the enemy of the good enough. Is her specific implementation good or good enough? That's open question. But it definitely is an improvement over the current situation which
is none.
Everything.
But I just worry that is like, okay, we gave you this, so shut up. Well, so, and then it's like, it's not enough.
Well, so that's the now you're entering the
complacency
realm of politics,
again. Like
right?
I'm worried about that same thing where like humans are complacent. They give us an inch, and then we're like, okay, like we got that. Let's be happy with that. We got the $600.
Well, but see, so there's
like I want to buy a car with Bitcoin. I'm not gonna buy coffee with Bitcoin. What I want to buy is a down payment on a house.
Well, but
that's gonna be more than $600.
Well, that's true. But there's 2 ways to look at it. Like you could look at it in that way where, okay, we got the $600, we can stop now. Or we can look at it in the other side of it, which is we got the $600. So now we're in the door. Now we're just
That's
arguing.
a good perspective.
Now we're just arguing. Like,
I appreciate that.
Because right now we're not recognized at all.
Right.
You get the $600. It's like, okay, well now they've had to at least recognize us.
Right.
So now
we're in the room.
We're bickering over the value. Okay. And I see both sides of that. I see why, why you want to say, full measure or nothing at all, because, once you get in the door and you're arguing over values, now you're, some of my friends would say, now you've legitimized the system against you. Well, yes, true. But at the same time, if you don't go down that path at least a little bit, then you might never
nothing.
get it.
Yeah.
And it's a.
I would like to see capital gains indexed for inflation.
Well,
so
one, everything should be indexed for inflation.
If I have a 10% year over year return in the stock market, but CPI was 8%, I shouldn't be taxed at a 10% gain because I didn't gain 10%.
Well, so here's an argument that I've it's been bubbling around in my head. I don't think it'll fly, but the argument goes like this. There's this thing in the Constitution. There's this thing about
I've heard of it.
Yeah, where the government has to pay you just compensation for taking. Right? If they take your shit, they got to pay you.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain. Well, the eminent domain is one aspect of it, but it's the
But who sets what just is?
Well, see, that's the question. Here's where it goes. So, inflation is a government policy. Like they print money and it creates inflation. We know that as Bitcoiners that basically the inflation is effectively. I mean, well, hell, the Fed's actions can regulate inflation. We know that. We see that day in and day out. I think even MMT people would agree with that inflation is effectively a controllable, like we don't necessarily believe it's controllable, but it's effectively, they believe it's a controllable thing. So everybody understands that inflation is, generally speaking, responsive to some extent to government policy. Well, now it looks like a regulation. So if there's inflation, then the inflated aspect of my money, so if I have a stock and it goes up by or a Bitcoin or whatever, and it goes up by X% in USD, then the inflationary component is effectively a taking. It's a tax.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I shouldn't
Inflation is taxation.
I shouldn't pay tax on my tax.
Right, but you do.
But I do. But I mean, I think somebody should, not me, somebody should make the argument in a court saying, look, inflation is effectively a tax that's due to government regulations. So I should be compensated. I should be paid by the government for that. For
the damages
that quote regulatory taking. So I think it's a completely bullshit legally argument.
Right,
it's far-fetched, but at least it's an interesting argument.
I mean, it is true though. Like the government has two ways of taxing, mainly outright taxation or inflation.
Inflation. Yeah,
they're both basically. Inflation's worse, I think.
Inflation's worse because nobody knows it's happening.
Because it's insidious. Because it happens beneath the surface where you don't realize it until you've kind of already gotten screwed. Whereas like when the government steals your money right from out from under you or like in front of your face, you're like, hey, wait a second. I'm not a big fan of this.
Yeah.
And then you go and tell your friends and your friends are like, wait, I'm not. They're doing that to me too. And then the group mentality, you go back to the herd, right? And now we've got a rally and like now we've got a movement, right? Whereas
inflation
something can be done. Yeah. Whereas inflation, people are all so confused on what it is,
and they blame the wrong party.
Right.
They blame
the other party.
They look at the corporations. They look at the retailers, and they say it's their fault. It's inflation.
Biden tweeted on Christmas Day 22, gas prices were higher a year ago. I'm like, yeah, but how high were they 2 years ago? You fuck, dude. I was like, how can you literally be trying to take credit for this right now?
Well, of course, the reason why they gas prices went down over 22 was because they opened up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and flooded the market with cheap gas.
And now we have,
now they're going up again.
Oh, are they? Because in the year-end episode, I showed the chart, or we discussed the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and I literally the stupidest thing I've ever said on a podcast. But I was like, hear me out, guys. Like, isn't the Strategic Petroleum Reserve supposed to be this like reserve of petroleum that we use for strategic purposes? Where's the strategy? Because like we're going to war with the biggest oil producer in the world that can play hardball for a lot longer than we can because their people are used to tough living conditions. We're used to TikTok, So like. I don't think we're going to handle that. Like if we have this like energy shortage in America, I don't think our population will not handle it as well as like Eastern Europe or like or anywhere in the world. Americans are soft. I'm just sorry. I mean, there's a lot of great things about America, but our general population today, I feel like is one that tends towards instant gratification. And high time preference, and that's exactly the antithesis of like the Bitcoin movement.
We fought a revolutionary war over a couple of penny tax on tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now people get screwed left and right and just say, thanks for letting me exist.
Yeah.
As if they determined that they were allowed to live, you know, and not the Almighty. So, well, that was the last thing I had here, man. Anything you want to like close us out with? Positive words of wisdom or
get a will, hodl your Bitcoin, self-custody, get
a will first thing.
Well, I mean, we were talking about that, and it was a good
advice.
Yeah, especially if you have kids, make sure that and we didn't get into it a little very much, but the if you have a lot of Bitcoin, you need to think about how it's going to be passed to your heirs, because it is important,
especially if you think the price could materially increase, because you're going to be like, let's say you got 5 Bitcoin today, which is less than $100,000.
Well, hell,
like
even one,
right? But I'm saying 5, like, which is still less than $100,000. Like if you're 50 or something, like you should have that much saved up at least.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to 10 million. You're so freaking above the estate tax gift limit that you can start gifting strategies now, and you're still not going to ever hit it. Like you can't get rid of it quick enough. So yeah, if you're bullish as hell, then you should start thinking about this stuff now.
And the last
especially because you can get more quantity of coins into a vehicle under the same threshold, like dollar amount, right?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And if you have
once it's in the trust, it's in the
trust, or if you have kids now, maybe establish Bitcoin accounts that are plausibly in their name, like their keys, so that and put the coins in their name now.
And
so
start gifting what is it, 15,000 or whatever?
I think it's 20 now.
Is it? No.
Yeah, 20.
This isn't tax legal advice.
Yeah, it's not legal advice. But the last thing I would say, if you have KYC free Bitcoin and you never mix, make sure they stay. Nary the twain shall meet.
Yeah. I'll add to that. Acquire no KYC Bitcoin if you can, and if you already have KYC Bitcoin, make sure it's segregated. And if you really want to start over, chances are you're probably down. So now's the time to do it if you're thinking about doing it. If you want to if you're going to clean slate, start free. I'm not saying it's worth the trouble. I'm not saying it's worth the fees. It might be. I'm not going to tell someone like who I don't even know who's listening what's right for them. But I've talked to a couple of different people who've considered like starting clean, like selling everything. But then like, okay, you have your cost basis recorded. Like, okay, like what if Bitcoin goes up while you like are waiting for the money to transfer? Do you have a plan on how you're going to acquire 5 Bitcoin without KYC? Like things like that. So like, just remember everything you do. You should think through it before you do it.
Yeah. Think through it before you do it.
Measure twice.
Yep.
And cut once.
Right? Absolutely.
Well, Colin, where can our listeners find out more about the stuff that you're working on personally with distributed hash? Otherwise,
where my personal Twitter is at Arcyrus_BTC. I'm at Arcyrus on Nostr. And
first Nostr shill of the
pod. There we go. I'm
number one.
And I did have a tweet that does include my Nostr key. So everybody should start using Nostr if they can, at least try it out. But that's pretty much the primary area. I keep a couple of things on my personal website, crc32.com, but not much there. Most of it's on Twitter.
And what's the hosting website?
Hosting is distributed ha.sh. So distributed hash. If they want to learn more about that, go there. And I've written for Bitcoin Magazine under my real name, Colin Crossman. So there's a couple articles there. A lot of stuff we've talked about is in those articles too. Especially the bit about unitary money and a couple other things. So
cool. I enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for
stopping
by, making the drive all the way from
Cheyenne,
good old Wyoming country, which is the least popular state.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, 575,000 people, something like that.
Yeah.
It's basically a suburb.
Rhode Island has more.
Rhode Island has a lot more.
Yeah.
Like, we are the smallest state by population by far.
Good. That's where you'll find me.
Yeah.
Away from me and the buffalo or the bison.
Buffalo, bison. Yeah, we definitely have more cows than people.
I wanted to ask you about Ted Turner and the bison conspiracy, but that'll be a good reason to get you back on the show. So,
there you go.
Whatever episode this was, I don't know, but thanks for listening. This has been Value Stack Podcast with Colin Crossman. Hope you enjoyed the show and hit that subscribe button if you did. We'll see you next time.